Imagine this. You are a loving, dedicated parent. You've raised your teen with strong values. You've tried to protect them from the dangers of the world, and you've always trusted them. And then one day, maybe through a phone check or a browser history slip, an unexpected credit card charge, or that deep parental gut feeling, that instinct, you discover that they're watching pornography. And it's not mild or occasional, it's darker, the genre more extreme, more frequent, and more secretive than you ever imagined. Your heart drops. Your mind races with questions. How did we get here? How did my child's life get to be this way? Is my child broken? Did I fail as a parent? What do I do now? Well, parents, you're not alone. Thousands of parents just like you are facing this exact moment right now. And here's what I want you to hear first and to remember throughout this episode. This is not about shame or judgment. This is about science. It's about understanding. It's about compassion and real hope. Parents, today we are diving deep into the hidden driver behind most teen pornography struggles, and that is the concept of tolerance. And it's the same powerful brain mechanism that turns things like casual drinking into dependency, or one pain pill into a serious addiction, or casual gambling into something that controls a person's life. Tolerance quietly and relentlessly pushes your teen toward more extreme content, longer sessions, and riskier behavior just to feel the same effect that they once got from milder material. Hi, parents. I'm Matt Bulkley, licensed psychotherapist and host of The Parent Guide. In this episode, we are going to unpack exactly how tolerance fuels escalation and why teenagers are neurologically wired to fall into this trap faster and harder than adults are. And the predictable patterns, backed by research, several real case scenarios from my clinical practice involving teens and their parents, warning signs, impacts on real-life relationships, and most importantly, the clear, proven step-by-step path to recovery. So if you're a parent who's just discovered your teen's use, or if you've even been suspecting that it's becoming a problem, then this episode is for you. Stick with me through this broadcast, and there will be real understanding, real hope. Before we begin, just a quick note. I know that it probably feels heavy, but no, you're in a completely safe place. No judgment, only tools, science, and compassion. Well, let's start with the absolute foundation. What exactly is tolerance? Think about maybe your morning coffee. The first cup gives you a pleasant buzz, but over time, over weeks or months, your body adapts, and then one cup doesn't cut it anymore. You need 2 cups or a stronger brew just to feel normal. Well, pornography works the exact same way in the brain, except the brew is an endless, high-speed stream of novel, hyper-stimulating videos available on demand 24/7 on any device. Well, let me explain dopamine in a way that every parent can understand. Dopamine is neurochemical. It's your brain's motivation and pleasure chemical. It's released when you get a text notification, when you score points in a video game, when your social media post gets likes, when you eat sugar, or when you accomplish a goal. And these are normal, manageable hits. But pornography delivers an unnaturally intense flood of dopamine that nothing in real life was designed to match. It's like turning up the volume on a speaker higher and higher until the original sound feels too quiet. Early on, relatively what we would call mild vanilla content triggers a strong response, but with repeated exposure, the process that happens is the brain downregulates its dopamine receptors. So it literally turns down the volume to protect itself from these unnatural surges of dopamine. And the result is the same scenes no longer deliver the excitement or arousal that they once did. And as a result, your teen then begins to need longer sessions, higher frequency, more intense material, or more shocking or novel content or genre or categories just to feel normal again. And this is the exact same brain mechanism that exists in substance addictions. So a major 2015 review in the Journal of Behavioral Sciences by Todd Love and colleagues explained the neuroscience and concluded that internet pornography addiction fits the addiction framework because it shares the core mechanisms with substance addictions, including tolerance and desensitization. And then about 10 years later in 2024, Researchers led by Campbell Ince published a landmark study in addictive behaviors, and they conducted network analysis over 2,300 male pornography users and found that quantitative tolerance, the need to spend more time viewing to reach satisfaction, sits right at the center of problematic use. It acts as a bridge connecting binge watching, rapid tab jumping between videos, and full loss of control. And qualitative escalation, so moving to more stimulating genres, keeps the vicious cycle spinning. So remember this: tolerance isn't necessarily moral weakness; it's a biochemical phenomena. Your teen's brain is simply doing what brains are designed to do, adapting to the stimulus that it's repeatedly given. The problem is that modern pornography is supernaturally potent. So here's another helpful analogy. Think of the brain like a muscle that gets trained by whatever you repeatedly expose it to. So the more extreme the input, the more it adapts, and the harder it becomes to feel satisfied with normal, healthy experiences. Well, let's talk about this. Why is it that teens get hit the hardest by this? Well, it's because their brains are still under major construction. The prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain responsible for impulse control, decision making, future planning, weighing the pros and cons of consequences. Well, we know that it doesn't fully mature until the mid-20s, some say as old as 25. And pornography acts as a supernormal stimulus. It hijacks the reward system with dopamine hits that are far more powerful than anything that evolution prepared us for. Real relationships, sports, hobbies, face-to-face connection cannot produce that level of powerful dopamine hit. And over time, natural rewards start to feel flat or boring, and only the hunt for novel or shocking content or genre reliably lights up the circuit. And this creates this vicious cycle. So desensitization leads to tolerance, which then leads to escalation. A 2016 study by Weary and Bill Yu found that nearly 47% of men reported that they had begun watching pornography that had previously either disinterested or even disgusted them. For today's teens, well, with smartphones, high-speed internet, and exposure starting earlier and earlier, this process can accelerate dramatically. Additional factors making teens especially vulnerable include poor sleep, which lowers dopamine baseline, high academic and social stress, anxiety, depression, and social isolation, all of which make artificial dopamine sources more appealing. And common gateways include social media algorithms that push increasingly sexualized content, gaming chats, Discord servers where friends share links, group texts, or even innocent curiosity that quickly spirals. Well, parents, I want you to pause for a moment here and ask yourself, when did I first suspect something? What were the early signs that I saw but maybe dismissed, and what was happening in our family life or maybe my teen's stress level at that time? And the reality is, for most teens, your teen isn't choosing this out of rebellion or because they're inherently bad. Their developing brain is literally being rewired by an unnaturally powerful stimulus. And understanding this, it shifts things from shame and panic to strategy and hope, because that is how you need to see this addiction. Well, let's talk about this escalation. So research and clinical data shows a fairly predictable Gutman-like progression for many pornography users, which tends to go through 4 stages. So kind of looks like this. Stage 1, label it basic or vanilla, which oftentimes is called softcore or mainstream, consists of consensual scenes, and a lot of times starts off accidentally or out of simple curiosity triggered by social media or movie scenes, and it starts in that level of that vein, that stage. And then as the tolerance builds and as the dopamine highs start to fade, moves into stage 2, which we'll label hardcore, which would involve things like group sex, rougher sex, multiple partners, and the brain's growing tolerance demands more intensity to get that same dopamine payoff. And this stage 2 stuff, not hard to find. It's on most of the porn sites out there, which then progresses to third stage, which would call fetishes, or the BDSM genre, which includes domination, submission, specific kinks, power dynamics. This is where the restart of the dopamine rush as vanilla and even hardcore begin to lose their effect. Then finally, that the fourth stage, and this is where we would label it violent, coercive, extreme, moves into some of the newer genre is stepmom, stepsister, very, very degrading, non-consensual themes, child pornography, highly deviant content. And at this stage, this is where many have crossed that personal value line and find themselves viewing things that they never thought that they would. One of the first clients we had at Star Guides about 12 or 13 years ago had this phenomena occur in his life, and he ended up into child pornography and was so shamed and disgusted by his own behaviors that it moved into the realm of self-loathing and suicidality. Well, another study that I'll reference here, a 2013 study by Siegfried, Spiller, and Rogers, it found, this is a very interesting finding, that the earlier age of first exposure is a strong predictor of later use of deviant material. So parents, warning signs that you should watch for include things like increased secrecy around devices, electronics, hiding screens, using the incognito mode obsessively, or getting defensive when asked what they're watching. And you might notice things like uptick in irritability or anger when you interrupt screen time. You might see declining grades, social withdrawal from family and friends, more isolation, more time wanting to be alone and isolated, loss of interest in hobbies, and a changed and often unrealistic or cynical attitude toward real life relationships and intimacy. So remember, tolerance rewires expectations. Many teens begin to expect the intensity, novelty, frequency, or specific acts that they see on screen from real partners, which sets them up for performance pressure, dissatisfaction, and difficulty forming healthy connections, unrealistic expectations for relationships. And we know that boys are especially vulnerable to the visual escalation pathway, chasing more variety, more explicitness, more shocking content as the tolerance builds. So let me share several real case scenarios from my clinical practice. And of course, names and identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. But the parents, these are the patterns, what we see in clinical practice week after week. So case number one, we'll call him Alex, age 14. His mom came into my office in tears during the first session and described Alex as her easy kid. Had always had good grades, played sports, was polite to teachers. She thought that they had a solid, close relationship. And then she checked his phone one evening after noticing that he was staying up very late, this pattern of staying up very late. And what she found shocked her. What started as occasional viewing of some basic kind of mainstream adult erotica videos had escalated over about 8 months to multiple hours a day of increasingly rough and extreme content. So as he started therapy and in our sessions, Alex opened up and admitted that the initial, what he called the normal stuff, just stopped working, and described that he needed more intense videos just to feel anything at all. And his tolerance had clearly progressed. His porn viewing sessions grew longer. He jumped between tabs rapidly, used incognito mode, was chasing categories that he told me made him feel guilty and shameful afterward. And at home, his mom had watched her once outgoing son become socially withdrawn, anxious about school, emotionally distant from everybody. So he stopped wanting to join family dinners and spent most nights isolated in his bedroom. And his grades went from A's and B's to C's and D's. And this was over the space of probably just maybe one semester, 2 semesters. And the guilt that his mom carried was heavy. She kept, in the family sessions that I would have with her, she kept asking me, where did I go wrong? How could I have missed this? Watching her son pulled into the cycle was heartbreaking for her. And this, Alex's story shows how fast tolerance can take hold in a young adolescent developing brain. All right, case scenario number 2, we'll call him Jordan, age 16. Jordan and his parents started treatment after a major confrontation in the home, and they had noticed that he seemed emotionally numb, constantly irritable and just distant. And they said this had been the case for several months. And when they finally started to do an analysis of electronics, they looked his laptop history and discovered that he had been deep in a tolerance escalation cycle for well over a year. And Jordan, the way he described it to me, it was at first it was maybe once or twice a week, and then it became more frequent to where it was happening every day. And he described that he needed more extreme stuff because the regular videos did nothing for me anymore. And he experienced intense anxiety, restlessness, sleep problems whenever he tried to stop, similar to kind of like the classic withdrawal symptoms driven by his desensitized dopamine system. And the thing that brought him into treatment, the family life had become tense. Dinners were quiet or filled with arguments, and there was growing conflict between Jordan and particularly his dad, who felt really hurt and confused by his deception and secrecy to cover his porn use. And Jordan told me that he felt bored and empty with everything else in life. Friends, school, sports, video games no longer held his interest. And pornography, it had become his primary source of dopamine, and in real life simply could not compete. And his parents were exhausted from the constant monitoring. They had moved into having to play detective and monitor all day, every day, which broke trust. But they were also very deeply committed to doing whatever it took to help him to recover. Next case, we'll call him Tyler, age 15. Tyler, a bright, kind of quiet, shy kid who loved video game, loved coding. His parents thought his screen time was mostly gaming until they installed a form of some monitoring software and discovered the truth that Tyler had moved quickly through these stages. He started with that vanilla genre, the kind of mild content, probably around age 12. So, but by age 15, span of about 3 years, he was deep into those third and fourth stages, the BDSM, the step parent, very deviant content, chasing more aggressive, dominant, degrading material because nothing else gave him that same feeling. And in his therapy, Tyler actually described the cycle perfectly, described longer sessions, constantly searching for something new, and then the growing shame afterwards. And his social life suffered a lot. He started to turn down invitations to hang out with friends so he could stay home and watch porn. His grades slipped, his anxiety skyrocketed, particularly when his parents started to set limits with his technology. And his dad shared with me how helpless that he felt watching his son withdraw into himself through this process. The tolerance had changed Tyler from an engaged, curious teen boy into someone who seemed flat, distracted, and disconnected from his real world life in any relationships. Finally, a case scenario, Marcus, age 17. Marcus was a very talented athlete who was on the varsity basketball team, had college scouts that were recruiting him. And this one was, his parents were particularly stunned when they learned uh, his performance had been declining because of heavy nightly porn use. And he had developed a severe tolerance. And he told me that he needed about 2 to 3 hours at a time to get that dopamine hit, often late into the night. And it had progressed into those very extreme categories 3 and 4, just filled the dopamine hit that he craved. And it was affecting his sleep, which then was affecting his performance, his energy on the basketball court, and his school motivation, his friendships. And he admitted that he had started objectifying girls at school and felt increasing anxiety about real relationships. And his parents, they described a once confident, driven young man who was popular, had girlfriends, lots of friends, who had become moody, secretive, and defensive. And his family was under enormous stress. But Marcus's case, it also shows hope because he was motivated to protect his basketball future. So he became very willing to engage fully in therapy and in recovery work. Well, parents, I know that these stories are painful, but they're incredibly common, and unfortunately, escalation happens. But it's not inevitable for every user. So make note of this: protective factors, things like strong family connections, consistent accountability for internet and online and phone use, open communication, and early intervention can make a huge difference. But do remember that tolerance progression. But let me rephrase that. Tolerance makes progression more likely if it goes unchecked. Well, parents, I want to give you some hope here. So here is the hopeful part of all this. And I really want you to hear this. The teen brain is incredibly resilient, especially in teenagers and young adults. And even after some of these significant significant tolerance and escalation progressions have taken hold, healing is absolutely possible. I can tell you in those 4 case scenarios, all 4 have been able to achieve a path to recovery. So it's absolutely possible. And understanding tolerance removes so much of the mystery and the self-blame. Remember, your teen isn't broken. Their brain has simply adapted to a very powerful stimulus, and with the right support and consistent changes, dopamine sensitivity returns. Natural rewards, things like real conversations, real relationships, sports, hobbies, laughing with friends, hanging out with friends, healthy intimacy, dating, become enjoyable again. And I've seen this recovery happen many, many times in my practice. And parents who lead with compassion instead of rage or anger or panic consistently get the best outcomes. So when shame is replaced with understanding and strategy, families have a greater chance for healing. So let me just walk you through what a real recovery can and should and does look like. So first, we focus on rebuilding healthy dopamine through everyday habits. So this means and I'm big on this. This one's huge, daily exercise. Even something as simple as walking, but I really like to recommend weightlifting, biking, hiking, running. Outdoor time in sunlight is especially powerful. So you need to really encourage your teen to begin an exercise program. Engaging hobbies that provide a sense of accomplishment, whatever that may be, whether it's learning to fly a drone or coding or music. Consistent sleep hygiene. So this is an important one too. Earlier bedtimes, making sure that sleep hygiene happens, being able to disconnect from technology early, and plenty of real face-to-face social connection. So as much face-to-face connection with other people as they can possibly get. All of these factors help restore the brain's natural reward system. And parents, secondly, therapy really does play such a crucial role here. Working with a clinician who understands pornography addiction and adolescent development helps teens process underlying issues, things like anxiety or low self-esteem or depression or ADHD or social struggles or feelings of ineptness. We teach them practical skills to handle cravings, to rewire thought patterns, and develop genuine confidence. So get connected with a therapist. If you're in Utah, if you're in the St. George area, we have several clinicians here at the office in St. George at Therapy Associates that specialize in teen pornography addiction. If you're not, then start doing some research and find a clinician that you can work with. Third, accountability is essential. So things like using reliable accountability software that reports to a trusted parent or a mentor removes the easy access that fuels the cycle. And this combined with non-shaming conversations at home. So create that safe space, create that capacity for you and your teen to be able to talk about this stuff openly. And it creates safety and support instead of driving the addiction underground with secrecy and isolation. If that can't happen, then recovery is very difficult. And then fourth, we address the whole family system. Parents often benefit from their own support as they work through feelings of anger or guilt or fear. And when parents model healthy screen use and emotional regulation themselves, it helps the entire family. Most teens show noticeable improvements in mood, focus, and motivation within about 1 to 2 months with some consistent effort. And significant dopamine system rewiring and reduced cravings typically take a little bit longer, but usually in that 3 to 6 month range. With fuller recovery continuing over the space of a year or so as new habits become automatic. And of course, every brain is different, but this progress is real and measurable and doable. So parents, let me offer you this as well. So here's maybe just a simple 5-step framework and that you can start using right away that will help you to conceptualize your role here. So number 1, educate yourself and your teen about this biochemical phenomena, tolerance, and the brain. So you know it and teach your teen about it. Removes the shame. Second, as we talked about, clear, compassionate boundaries with accountability tools. Third, as we talked about, rebuild the daily dopamine through exercise, sleep, real-world activities, face-to-face connections. Fourth, seek that professional support that's tailored to adolescents with pornography addiction. And then finally, celebrate small wins and maintain connection, even on those hard days, days when there has been setbacks or relapses. So parents, you have more influence than you realize. Your steady, calm leadership and support can guide your son back to a healthier path. And again, recovery is not only possible, it's happening every single day for families just like yours. Parents, let me just add this. If your son's pornography use is causing distress, if it's interfering with school, relationships, mental health, or daily life, please know early intervention is one of the most important things you can do. And you don't have to figure this out alone. I strongly recommend starting with the Recovery Toolbox for Teens. And this is a structured, evidence-based program, a trio of workbooks designed specifically for adolescents and their parents, provides practical tools, step-by-step guidance, weekly lessons, accountability frameworks, and ongoing support throughout the entire recovery journey. So whether your son is just beginning to show signs of tolerance or has already escalated, this program meets families exactly where they are. It equips you with what actually works. And it's not just theory. These are proven strategies based in research that address both the brain science and real-life challenges that teens face today. And you get it in the bookstore at therapyassociates.net. It's the blue recovery toolbox. It's the curriculum we use here in our clinic in St. George at Therapy Associates and in our Star Guides program. And for more serious cases, so this would be when there's significant issues like sexual acting out or high risk online behavior or debilitating mental health issues, severe anxiety or depression or self-harm or suicidality, failing grades, or when home-based approaches are no longer enough, when it seems as if you have lost any capacity to have influence in your teen's life as a parent, then I recommend our Star Guides Wilderness program. And this is a clinically sophisticated wilderness-based intervention that combines high-intensity professional therapeutic intervention with an immersive nature experience, creates the ultimate digital detox in a highly structured environment. And for many, when everything else has failed, this has been the turning point for lasting healing when a teen needs a more intensive reset. And over the years, many parents have described it as the intervention that finally broke the cycle and gave them their son back. And you can learn more about Star Guides at the website at starguides.net. And you'll find direct links in the show notes below for both the Recovery Toolbox for Teens and for Star Guides. And don't wait in fear or uncertainty. Reach out today. So taking that first step is often the hardest, but is also the most important. Well, parents, I hope this episode helps you to feel more informed, less alone, and more hopeful. And please subscribe to the Parent Guide for weekly guidance, tips, strategies, research, and support on the recovery journey. And let me know if you have questions. Let me know what stage you're in and what your biggest takeaway was. Parents, remember, you've got this. Healing is possible. Your son can recover. And with understanding, consistency, and the right support, you can guide them back to a healthier, freer life. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I will see you in the next episode.